Good morning, Happy New Year. So this is a series that I'm starting called Sips to Quench. The objective is we'll be reading the Bible little by little, taking sips of the word to quench our thirst. What I also want to do is add Christian commentary to things that are happening in this world and see what is God's response to it, what does Jesus say about it. I don't want to come across as holier than thou. Those who know me know I do have a very wild past. The Bible says in Matthew 7:3-5, don't call out the speck of dust in a brother when you have a log in your eye. This is me calling out my log. In Romans 10:11, it says, those have no shame in Jesus Christ. I've always been willing to share these stories. I think that some of them are comical. I just, for some reason, never said, hey, let me share my testimony. So this, to me, is a great introduction. I don't need anybody feeling like I'm judging them. God calls us to have righteous judgment. That's what I'll be doing. Now, God had laid this on my heart a year ago. This is 2025, and I refuse to play in God's face. I refuse to be disobedient. So my story starts off with one understanding that I grew up in a Christian household. My grandparents are pastors, my parents are pastors. So I'm a generational preacher's kid. So, my parents, they have a relationship with Christ. I need to make that distinct. I never reverenced God to that point like they did until very recently. There were testimonies and things that I acknowledged God in, but I never said, well, this is the God that I now serve. It took years for me to recognize Christ. Even after that, a little bit longer for me to say, let me honor this God that I serve, because I understand that he's a loving God. In daycare, I had my first encounter physically. It was this little girl nap time. She made me touch her, she touched me, and I knew at that moment, this feels good. So I had this experience, and then in elementary school, had a dream about my wife. I've always been overly romantic. Things got very perverted for me as I grew up, but I had this dream about my wife. I knew, all right, in order for you to have a wife, you have to be in a relationship that I desired since 4th grade. Even though there were people around me getting into relationships, that's just not something that came across my life. I would consistently try to go after a girl and would just face rejection after rejection. Maybe I should go after girls that don't like me, and if I can get them to like me, then I know that I'm truly loved. This is something that carried on with me throughout all my life. Even though I had friends, I felt as though I was bullied. I attempted suicide multiple times throughout my life, but God has always came through. God has always had his hand on me. The attempt has always failed, and I thank God for that. I had discovered adult content in 6th grade. This became my comfort. I never shared this with my parents because this was something that I thought was secret. I developed this pattern when I was literally doing it every day in middle school. And that even carried into high school. I had a responsibility to pick up my sister after school, and I would literally knock myself out. I would do it, fall asleep, late to pick up my sister. This was like an everyday thing. Parents being parents, they knew like something was up, but they didn't know what it was. I think even my dad had said like, yo, you knocking yourself out. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to relax and doing it. So in high school, like I said, because of the rejection, this is what I was running to. My parents having a wild past in themselves, when they were doing their best, one of the things that stuck to me was, if you have sex before marriage, you're going to hell. Though I didn't have a relationship with Christ, I knew hell was not a place I wanted to go. I inherently knew hell meant no God. No God meant no peace, no love, no joy. But that didn't stop me. In 8th grade, I had these girlfriends of mine, and we went down to the basement and we would have dry humping sessions. Yes, I was a humper thumper. It was all because of the fear of not wanting to have sex, not wanting to take it to that next level, so I would do everything around it. Still had this desire. And in high school, I thought, hey, I'll get a high school sweetheart, I'll date her all throughout high school, we'll fall in love, we'll get married. That was my mindset. I still was a very romantic kid. Though there was perversion, I want this romantic aspect for her. So in high school, it was the same thing. I went to a small high school, was rejected left and right, and I ended up obsessing over this girl what felt like for 4 years. Even though I was getting attention elsewhere from other people, I just wasn't ready to accept that after years of rejection, it was odd to me. During this phase, during Kick and Omegle, for those who know, you know, and I got into self-exposure. Now, I was not a dumb kid. I knew who was a catfisher, who wasn't, but after a while, it didn't really matter to me, you know. So I started, like I said, sending explicit photos, videos of myself, and this was a thing that I did very often, and I didn't care. I was now being desired. Cool. I ended up getting my first relationship my sophomore year. She cheated because she wanted to press things further along, and I just wasn't ready for that. But in the back of my head had that idea of, you do anything before marriage, that's going to send you to hell. Even though I was being sexual and immoral regardless, because I was participating in explicit content. I was exposing myself for free, mind you. So it's not even prostitution. It was just, hey, you want to see it, you can see it. That was the thing for the longest. The summer of my senior year, I had these people in my life who knew, Joshua, you were overly romantic. The first girl that you're going to sleep with, you're going to fall in love with, you need to lose your virginity before you go to college. And it happened. You know, I ended up losing my virginity, and instead of me being with that girl who took my virginity because there was an interest there, I was like, nah, I need more of this. It brought me back to that time in pre-K when I first had that encounter with a woman and a rejection. I need more. I need to go out and run rampant. And so in college, I did exactly that. However, I was given 3 rules. Always wear a condom, don't have sleepovers, and never kiss anybody. 2 of those 3 went right out the window, and did wake up with mad emotions. I thought I was in love with this girl. I didn't even know her. Because I had this encounter and she was whispering sweet nothings in my ear, I thought, wow, I love her, and now I can finally have what I've always wanted. I'll just date this girl. She'll be my college sweetheart. We'll be a happy family, or whatever the case. How quickly that bubble bursted. I had a conversation with a friend, and he came to me and said, oh yeah, well, the girl you like, you telling me about my girlfriend and what she's doing wrong, and the girl you like is sleeping with mad guys. I didn't know that this was the case, and I didn't believe it. I went upstairs to confront the girl, and as soon as I got to her, the basketball player walked out the door, and he says to me, you know, welcome to college. Your girl's never your girl. That broke me. I developed this mantra of words have value, but they mean nothing. I took it upon myself to now do what I thought was appropriate to everybody else. I became the greatest manipulator. Now, I was not leading with money, I led with words. I could speak promises and give you these great visions of a future. All of it was a lie to get what I wanted. I was even still messing with this girl to get what I thought I wanted. Because of that, it became a habit. All I desired at that moment was sex. And so I was having sex with different girls literally every day, to the point where the hole that was already developed in my heart of this rejection was now growing bigger. Now I'm just having aimless sex. I always stayed protected. That rule never changed. And I really stuck to those 3 rules. I was consistently having sex with different women, like a different girl every night. And these girls thought I liked them. I was just lying and doing what I wanted to do. That carried on for a minute. Then I got introduced to this girl who was outside of my religion. She was Muslim. I cared about her a little bit. I would manipulate her and leave her every other semester. And this probably continued from my freshman year all the way until, you know, the last year that I was in school. And I was good with it. Part of me still thought was, oh, I'm still innocent. I'm still this good guy. You know, I'm not with her. We're not in a relationship. It got so bad that I had told her, like, you know, never ask me a question that you don't want the answer to. Just straight manipulation. And so there was this boundary that she never would cross, and she would never ask, but I knew what I was doing. Because I had this hole in my heart, I picked up a vice. I developed a smoking habit. I started smoking weed. It's a suppressant for me. I started smoking so much that I said, I need to sell this stuff. God's hands was on me, because there have been multiple instances where people told me, you know, you need to relax, you need to slow down, you're doing too much. I didn't care. There was so many things that could have sent me to federal prison. This girl, she was a freshman at the time, and she was messing with this kid, and I had a habit of dealing with girls who are in relationships. If I'm not getting love, I'm playing the side man. I'm thinking, oh, I'm so dope, I'm so cool, I'm taking this girl from her boyfriend, when really it was like, I'm being used now for sex. I'm thinking that I'm getting what I want, but really it was women getting what they want. Now I'm a sexual object. I'm being objectified. I'm thinking I'm objectifying women, but really it's the other way around. It was both, because I didn't care. Mind you, still, I'm dealing with this Muslim girl. This one instance where it was our off season, and I'm dealing with this girl, and like a week later, she came to me and was like, I'm pregnant. All right, congratulations. No, I just took you from some guy. I know this is her boyfriend, and she was like, no, this is your baby. All right, at the end of the day, I was selling drugs, so I had money, and I said, we getting this abortion. If this is what you want an abortion? Yeah, I bet. So let's get the abortion. You ain't gotta convince me. For hindsight being 2020, that really did break me. Whether it was my baby or not, I participated in killing an innocent child. There was blood on my hands for that. Because that shook me so much, let me take this Muslim girl seriously. Our relationship started to develop and get real serious at that moment. Now, I was Christian by religion, not by relationship. I was like, hey, I want to get married. In the beginning of our relationship, I'm Christian, she's Muslim, we'll just raise our kids to choose. And I knew what I knew from the Bible through my parents and through my grandparents, but I never picked up the Bible for myself to read it. So I did not know the context, what was inside. But she read the Quran, and so she knew her book. And so as we would talk, I was like, look at all these similar things in the books, and oh, this must be a continuation. So now I'm thinking that this is the same thing. Because my parents were Christian, I knew the one thing that's not going to happen is me converting. I said to her, hey, let's get married. She switched up. In the beginning, it was, yeah, you could stay Christian, I'll stay Muslim. But now I guess she figured, oh, yeah, we got him. We got him now. And she said, yeah, you want to marry me? You got to convert. But I was in such an isolated place. And what I knew of the Quran, I was like, you know what? I'll convert. That's no issue. But God has a way of still moving in your life. But the devil actually had played a big thing in my head where I thought, if I convert, my parents are going to kick me out the house. They'll disown me. They'll excommunicate me from the family. I know my parents would have not agreed with the lifestyle, but I knew that me being excommunicated wasn't a thing. That was the devil coming in my mind saying, yeah, if you leave, this is what's going to happen. So I told her, I was like, hey, look, it wouldn't be fair for me to just convert out of nowhere. I know my parents. I know they're going to be like, how are you converting and you've never read the Bible? And so I told her, let me show my parents all of these contradictions. She said, hey, if you do get kicked out or you do lose your family, my father will let you move in a house. My family will become your family. So I'm like, oh, bet. Oh, it's good now. Right before I read, I did pray. God, listen, if you don't reveal yourself to me while I read this book, if you don't convince me that your son is who he said he is, I'm out of here. I got a family on the other side. I got a house on the other side. Furthermore, I'll get what I've always desired as a child, and that's a wife. But God got a way of, you want to test my gangster? I'm gonna show you who I am. And I really thank God for that, because I didn't even make it through Genesis, literally, when God revealed himself to me. This is how the understanding came to me, because I prayed for understanding. When you're in Genesis, you read that there's a God who's outside of time and space. And then when you read that his spirit was hovering over the waters. So I said, that's two. You got the God outside of time and space, the spirit who is hovering over the waters. And then when God created Adam, he said, let's make him in our image. And then you read that God walked with Adam. And then the fall of Adam and Eve, you see that Adam hid from God. How do you hide from a being outside of time and space? How do you hide from a spirit? And then I realized there was a physical presence that walked with Adam, that talked with Adam. Adam was able to hide from God. And right there in that moment, I knew, when he said, let's make him in our image, that we're a three-part being. It says it throughout the Bible. We're mind, body, and spirit. And I said, we're three parts in one being, and God is three essence. There's three essence of God in one being. And right there is when I had to recommit my life to Christ. Right there is when I knew, whoa, I didn't even make it past Genesis. God is God. Jesus Christ is King. I was still so in love with my ex at the time that I would try to convince her of Christ. I would try to, as God was revealing himself, because I finished the entire Bible. I was so intrigued in knowing who God was. And as I was reading, I was discovering all of these, the spirituality and people wanting to worship the stars, and God talks about it all. God has called out all of these false teachings, all of these false religions. As I'm reading it, I'm like, whoa, this is clear. It's as clear as day. How is anybody confused and not realizing that, one, only in Christianity, only in faith of Christ, do you have life insurance? Do you have where God has promised you eternal life? He sent his son. All of these things I'm realizing, wow, God is who he said he is. No amount of convincing could convince this girl. No amount of clarity. She immediately went to, you're offending me. You're talking about my prophet. You're talking about, my upbringing. She wasn't Muslim by choice, but she was Palestinian. She was born into this faith. Her family would have excommunicated her. All the things that I thought my parents would have done, her parents really would have done. They would have kicked her out. So there was no convincing her of this. Even with that, God stepped in and she broke up with me. Needless to say, I dedicated my life to Christ, gave it all to God, and to God be the glory for it. And I started to realize in my past all these things that I had favor in, all these things that God delivered me from, that I thought was me, that I thought, oh, because I'm a smooth talker. No, it was God. In Matthew 6:26 and in Luke 12:24, verse 34, God says, you never see the birds in the sky complain or worry about where they're going to get their food, where they're going to get their water. God has provided. How much more does God love us, preachers who are not beasts, who can see right from wrong, who has a conscience, who can identify God for God? That really shaped and transformed me into realizing that the God that I serve is a good God, and I'm so thankful for him, how much he loves you. That's my testimony. That was my coming to Christ moment. I pray for you. The same God that delivered me can deliver you. I'm not perfect. I understand that if it wasn't for Christ, who gave his life up but yet had all power in his hands, who laid down and died, and in 3 days rose again. This is Sips to Quench. This is episode 1. This is my testimony. Happy New Year. I am a full faith believer. I know Christ for myself. I have a relationship with him. God is changing me from the inside. This longing that I had for the world was really just a longing that I had for him. The same God back then is the same God now.